Recreational venues and cinemas will also be allowed to operate. Alert Level 3 also authorizes limited physical classes for tertiary level and vocational courses. Also allowed are in-person religious gatherings, wakes, and funerals. Licensure exams, personal care services, dine-in services, fitness studios and gyms, film and TV production are permitted as well. There will be no face-to-face classes for elementary and high school levels under Alert Level 3. Contact sports, concerts, casinos, horse racing, cockfighting, and gathering of people not living in the same household are prohibited. In San Juan City, Mayor Francis Zamora says downgrading the alert status should be gradual amid improving situation.
Ayoko namang tumalon from Alert Level 4 to Alert Level 2 sapagkat yan po ay magbibigay daan sa mas napakaraming mga industriya at negosyo na magbubukas na maaring sa ngayon ay pwede nating i-consider ang high risk pa. So I would rather really do it slowly. Nakikita natin na yung pagpapatupad ng Alert Level 4 ay talagang really do it slowly. Nakikita natin na yung pagpapatupad ng Alert Level 4 ay talagang gumagana sapagkat ang numero ay hindi magsisinungaling. We base our decisions on numbers and we are seeing a sharp decline in the number of active cases and I believe that it is time to downgrade to Alert Level 3.
From over 1,000 COVID-19 cases 2 weeks ago, the current active cases in Navotas City dropped to over 200. Mayor Toby Chanco says it's a good indicator why a shift in alert level system can be considered.
Yung ayuda kasi will never be enough. We will have to help them. Yung granular lockdown namin, konting-konti na lang Kahit kaya isolation facility namin, halos basyo na. So it's a good sign. Kaya lang, the good sign doesn't mean walang chance ang...
Meantime, healthcare groups warn that the easing of restrictions may lead to rising cases as the Christmas season approaches.
Comprehensive, no, doon sa pagbaba kasi syempre based doon sa previous na mga experience natin, yung pagluluwag na naman ng mga measures natin ay mga ngahulugan ng muling pag-akyat ng kaso ng COVID-19, no? So medyo kami ay talagang medyo worried, no, dahil sa baka biglang tumaas na naman ang kaso, lalo-lalo na itong dadating na Pasko.
Healthcare groups add that while the government must be ready with the necessary intervention should there be any additional or new COVID-19 surge. Health reform advocate Tony Liachon said in a tweet that while we may need to live with the virus and massive lockdown should be avoided, the government or local government units must work double time in order to reduce the daily COVID-19 cases. Back to you, Tia.
Tristan Adalo there reporting. The Transportation Department defending the relaxing of quarantine rules for international arrivals. Fully vaccinated passengers from abroad no longer need to undergo facility-based quarantine, provided that they are negative in RT-PCR tests 72 hours prior to their flights. To be clearer, the passengers must come from countries included by the government in the so-called green list. A transportation official says the decision was well thought of and based on recommendations from experts from the Health Department. Health Secretary Francis For some travelers, Duque said he was not consulted.
Ito ay masusing pinag-aralan at alam ito ng DOH. In fact, silang pinagmulan ng mga decisions kung bakit natin tinunguhan itong mga IATF na solutions na ito. Ang mga DOH expert ay na-consult at siyempre, palagay ko naman alam din ng puno ng DOH yan.
Malacanang echoes the Transportation Department's sentiments. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says the decision was based on science. He adds the list of green countries will be revised. A severe tropical storm Maring leaving a trail of devastation in many parts of the country. Disaster management officials report at least 19 people dead, while 13 others still missing. Affected areas include Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, Pangasinan, La Union, Benguet, and Palawan. The NDRMC says it also is looking into reports of 11 more deaths in Cagayan and Benguet. Besides these, 3 injured persons and 1 still missing. Maring left agricultural losses worth 1 billion pesos in the Ilocos region, Cagayan Valley, Mimaropa, Western Visayas, and Cordillera. Coming up on Newsnight, Vice President Leni Robredo lays down her plans for the country if elected to the highest post next year. Find out how she would deal with the pandemic and what her stance is on China. And another presidential aspirant, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, apologizes to Robredo. Details after the break. Stay tuned.
Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan niini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Patuloy na naglilingkod sa bayan. Mas todong pagseserbisyo publiko. Mas todong lakas. Mas pinakihinggan ng buong bansa.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda.
DXKP Pagadian.
Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Mas pinalawak, mas pinalakas, RPN sa iba't ibang mga lalawigan. DZRL Bataan, DZTG Tuguegarao, DZBS Baguio,
Welcome back to Newsnight. I'm Pio Ontiveros, Newsnight, of course, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pio Ontiveros. News overseas now. The United States is easing travel restrictions for fully vaccinated visitors from Canada and Mexico beginning November. That is welcome news for many hit hard by border closures that have been in place for over 18 months. CNN's Rafael Romo reports from Mexico City.
Families with relatives on both sides of the border could not be happier. Closing the border more than 18 months ago meant people belonging even to the same family were separated by the pandemic, and businesses on both the American and Mexican sides have taken a big hit. According to officials, the reopening is thanks to a joint effort by Mexico and the United States to improve vaccination levels. Mexico's health department announced Tuesday that 75% of the country's adult population, nearly 67 million people, have received at least one dose of any of the different coronavirus vaccines. And according to health authorities, vaccination levels are as high as 95% in places like here in the capital. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador reacted to the announcement of the border reopening, saying that it was the result of hard work made by the governments of both his country and the United States.
We're going to have normality at our northern border. Mexico has made many efforts and procedures with the United States government. There have been many meetings with the goal of achieving the reopening of the border, and at the same time we decided to vaccinate in the border areas to help bring about this agreement.
And let's remember that 3 top U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Attorney General Merrick Garland, and Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, met with President López Obrador here in Mexico City on Friday. The meeting was about a new bilateral security agreement, but there were other issues discussed as well. The Mexican government announced last month that more than 3.8 million people who live in 45 cities on 6 different states along the U.S. border had been vaccinated. Mexican Foreign Minister Ebrard says improved vaccination levels meant a faster border reopening.
The vaccination levels in Mexico, especially in the northern region, but also in the rest of the country, are very elevated or comparable with those of the United States. I will even say that there are cities in Mexico that have a higher vaccination levels than those in the United States.
And President López Obrador had pushed since mid-September for a full reopening of the border given the improved vaccination levels. American border towns were also pushing for reopening because they have lost millions of dollars in the more than 18 months they haven't had any Mexican shoppers spending money in their businesses. Rafael Romo, CNN, Mexico City.
Back here at home, a survey shows 45%, or nearly 5 in 10 Filipinos, agreeing that it is dangerous to publish anything critical of the Duterte administration. The latest social weather station survey also says 29% are undecided, 19% disagree, and 6% strongly disagree. This means the net agreement score is now plus 26, which is classified as moderate. This is a 6-point rise from the moderate plus 20 in June. The survey also shows 42%, or 4 in 10 Filipinos, agreeing that they can say anything they want openly and without fear, even if it is against President Duterte. 22% say otherwise. This gives a net score of a moderate plus 20, which is a slight increase from the plus 18 in June. The survey was conducted among 1,200 adults nationwide from September 12 to 16. Presidential aspirant Senator Ping Lacson reveals details of his second meeting with Vice President Leni Robredo in a bid to have a unified opposition. Days before the filing of candidacies, Lacson says he and running mate Senate President Tito Soto met with Robredo together with Liberal Party stalwart Senator Frank Drilon. Soto says it was the Vice President's camp that sought a meeting. Lacson says Drilon insinuated a possible Robredo-Soto tandem.
Came the second meeting, doon ko talaga na-confirm na yung unification effort is only to unify under them, nothing more. Using hand motion, si Senator Drilon mismo, tinuro niya si Vice President Leni saka si Senate President Tito Soto na sila yung magkatandem in my face, parang effectively telling me in my face to withdraw and mag-create ng bagong tandem between the Vice President and the Senate President. So sa akin, when I was told that, I felt insulted.
Earlier, Lacson offered Robredo a so-called unification formula against the Duterte administration for the 2022 elections, but Robredo rejected the proposal since it would demand that candidates eventually withdraw from the race to support the leading opposition bet in the final stretch of the campaign. Now, Vice President Leni Robredo gives a preview of how she will lead the country amid the pandemic if elected and how her administration will deal with China. Our senior correspondent, Anjo Alimario, has details.
What can Filipinos expect in the first 100 days of a Leni Robredo presidency? To her, it's quite clear: to control the pandemic.
Focusing all our efforts on decreasing the number of COVID cases dramatically so we can fully reopen the economy. And to do this, we must realign the national budget so that it will be more akin to addressing the pandemic.
As the COVID-19 crisis overwhelms hospitals and health workers, Robredo vows to do better, empower the healthcare system, and take care of frontliners. On declaring martial law amid the pandemic, Robredo sees no need for that. She says there are laws that can be used to help the country get through the crisis. Agriculture will also be one of her top priorities if elected. That's one of the reasons she points out why she chose Senator Francis Pangilinan as her running mate, given his advocacy on food security. The goal, she says, is to make sure the health crisis doesn't turn into a food crisis. On creating jobs, Robredo is quick to admit she won't overpromise. She says she doesn't subscribe to the false dichotomy of health versus economy.
One thing I can promise is I will make sure that my administration will inspire confidence as far as the business sector is concerned.
As to foreign policy, Robredo points out the Philippines will collaborate with China in areas where there's no conflict, such as trade. But when it comes to the West Philippine Sea, she says there will be no deal until China recognizes the arbitral ruling. The presidential hopeful reveals their Senate slate has already been finalized. 5 names have already been announced last week. Robredo says the rest will come from different parties. If elected, what kind of a president will she be? Robredo says one who's nurturing and empowering, one who thrives quietly yet decisively amidst adversity. Anjali Marios, CNN Philippines.
Meanwhile, yet another presidential aspirant, Isko Moreno, takes back his words against Vice President Leni Robredo and anyone he might have offended with his recent remarks. Moreno earlier called the Vice President a fake leader with a fake color. He was criticizing her for running as an independent bet, even if she is the current Liberal Party chair. Moreno jumped from the National Unity Party to Acción Democrático before the filing of candidacies. Speaking to CNN Philippines, Senator Kiko Pangilinan, who is seeking the vice presidency alongside Robredo, acknowledged Moreno's comments, saying now is not the time to go against each other.
Magandang development yun dahil sa totoo lang, hindi naman, ang tunay na kaaway natin, hindi ang isa't isa. Hindi yung kapwa kababayan natin. Ang tunay na kaaway natin dito ay yung COVID, yung gutom. At dapat yun ang tinututukan ng debate. Paano ang masusolusyonan ang COVID? Paano mabibigyan ng manumbalik ang sigla ng ekonomiya para yung trabaho ng ating mga kababayan?
Some lawmakers are calling out political parties for taking advantage of the substitution option, but the Commission on Elections remains firm in keeping the provision. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez tweeted that instead of banning withdrawals, restrictions should be introduced by Congress. He also admitted the option has been used as a strategy before, but that he sees the worth of the system. Senate President Tito Soto and Senator Coco Pimentel spoke out against the alleged abuse of this provision and pushed for its removal. Among those speculated to be placeholders until November 15 is presidential hopeful Senator Bato de la Rosa, who has expressed willingness to be substituted by Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. When we return, something to watch out for sports fanatics out there, with the Philippines hosting another global league. And guess who's back with new music? A British superstar announces her first album in years. Details next. Keep it here on CNN Philippines.
Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan niini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Huy, naunsa man ka? Nagbugot lagi ka. Kabalon ako. Ikapoy ka no. Sakit imong lawas tungod sa sobrang trabaho? O sakit imong ulo tungod sa stress? Pahuway una. Ginhawag lawom, ug hiluta ang imong ulo gamit ang Herbalaya liniment oil. Kay mausab ni akong ginahimo. Maong akong taas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break sa
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy nakaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy nakaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa. Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan niini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Salamat sa RPN. Hindi makilimutan ating pinagdaanan.
You're watching Newsnight. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Diversified conglomerate San Miguel Corporation hailed as Top Employer of the Year at the 2021 Asia CEO Awards. The company bested other major conglomerates in the country across several criteria, including management achievement, workplace enhancement, talent development, and social commitment. In a video message, SMC President and CEO Ramon Ang emphasized the importance of instilling a deeper sense of purpose among employees in helping the firm overcome challenges and thrive amid the current business environment. Ang also reiterated their commitment to help the country towards recovery. Since March 2020, SMC has rolled out one of the largest private sector responses to the crisis, spending over 14 billion pesos for the country's frontliners and poorest communities. Now, shifting gears now, FIBA fans can expect to see the action happening right here on our own turf again next year. The Philippines is set to host the first two windows of Group A for the 2023 FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers in February 2022. The first window was supposed to be held next month, but was moved because of the pandemic. 4 teams will play 8 games in a bubble environment for the February period. Gilas Pilipinas will go against South Korea twice and New Zealand and India once each. Now, actor William Shatner, or Captain Kirk to legions of Star Trek fans, did the unthinkable with his latest conquest. The 90-year-old icon just completed a real-life trip to space. CNN's Kristen Fisher tells us more about Captain Kirk's historic voyage.
Command engine start. 2, 1.
And with that, 90-year-old Star Trek icon William Shatner became the oldest person ever to travel to space. Shatner and 3 other passengers were propelled from the desert of West Texas to the edge of outer space aboard a New Shepard spacecraft developed by Jeff Bezos' rocket company, Blue Origin. It's the same spacecraft that took Bezos to space this summer. Bezos, a lifelong Star Trek fan, flew Shatner as a guest, along with Blue Origin executive Audrey Powers and 2 paying customers. The out-of-this-world adventure lasting just 10 minutes from takeoff to landing, Shatner and his crewmates experienced about 3 minutes of weightlessness before the capsule started its descent back to Earth.
And there go the drogue parachutes.
The flight livestream captured Shatner sharing his post-suborbital trip thoughts with his crewmates.
That was unlike anything they described.
After landing safely, a Blue Origin team secured the capsule, and Bezos himself did the honors. Cheers as each of the 4 passengers walked out of the capsule, including Captain Kirk himself.
Captain Kirk himself, the great William Shatner.
Shatner telling Bezos it all happened so quickly.
It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, you know, the little things of weightlessness. But to see the blue cover go whip by, and now you're staring into blackness.
Shatner clearly taken aback by the gravity of the moment.
It was so moving to me. This experience has been something unbelievable.
William, you've had one of the most, perhaps one of the most interesting lives that any human could possibly have. Where does this stack up on your list of life experiences?
This is enormous. I'm overwhelmed, and it takes more than a little thing to overwhelm me.
You said everybody in the world needs to see it. Why? What do we need to see?
Yeah, but it's not tourism. Everybody in the world needs to have the philosophical understanding of what we're doing to Earth, and and you hear this so often, the necessity of cleaning our Earth and stopping right now the apocalypse that's coming our way.
That was CNN's Kristen Fisher reporting. Fans earlier speculated Adele is releasing a new album named 30, patterned after previous albums entitled 19, 21, and 25. The pop icon finally confirmed these rumors through social media along with the release date of November 19th. With nearly 6 years since her last album, Adele posted that she is finally ready to release her next one called 30 at a time when she's never felt more peaceful in her life. The Grammy winner's brand new single, Easy on Me, also comes out Saturday morning. Now, a pair of previews, one for horror enthusiasts and the other for fans of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Here's CNN's David Daniel with a Hollywood Minute.
But it's going to be such a comical thing, like in 50 years' time. They broke up because Yoko sat on an M. Documentary just grinding to a halt.
Grinding to a halt, I think it's taking off.
Here we go.
Here's your first look at The Beatles' Get Back. The Fab Four's recording sessions in January 1969, when the band was on the verge of breaking up, were filmed for a planned documentary. Instead, the footage was locked away for more than half a century. Now, filmmaker Peter Jackson has distilled nearly 60 hours of restored footage into a 3-part documentary, which premieres on Disney Plus November 25th, 26th, and 27th.
Hello? Don't hang up. Who are you?
You know all our names?
You're getting out of here.
Doctor Strange and Sinister director Scott Derrickson returns to terror with The Black Phone, about a kidnapped boy who somehow gets help from his abductor's previous victims. Ethan Hawke plays the masked murderer in the horror thriller, which slips into theaters February 4th. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
We still have 72 days before Christmas Day, and that is it for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.